Welcome to episode 148 of the Startup Show. Today I'm talking to the COO and co-founder of Insolight, Florian, and we're talking about Insolight. We talk about the future of solar energy and why it's very important also for the climate change. And we talk about why you should be starting or not starting a startup. Make sure to stay tuned for the full video. Welcome to episode 148 of the Startup Show. Today we are here in Lausanne at the EFPL Innovation Park in Lausanne, and I'm really excited to meet with the COO and co-founder of Insolight. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's such a pleasure to have you. It's a very special industry, and I'm very excited to learn much more about it. But as usual on the Startup Show, you get about a minute and a half to introduce yourself to my audience.
Basically, I'm a guy who's living in Switzerland, Austrian actually, but I've been living here for 20 plus years, something like. So I'm as good as Swiss without the papers, so to say. Engineer by training, anything towards robotics. So basically putting together mechanics, electronics, and computer science. I'm no expert in those topics specifically, but I know how they work and I can put them together, so to say. Today I'm working in solar energy. You need to move forward towards clean sources of energy, being more sustainable, be it in energy production or consumption. So I got the opportunity to be in this team and definitely enjoy it.
Very good. Yeah. So tell me, what inspires you about entrepreneurship? Why do you think it's the right thing for you?
During my studies, I always saw these startups here on campus. I don't know if you know the campus a little bit, but there's the academic side with all the students. There's about 10,000 students. I don't know the latest numbers, something like. There's also an innovation park. So basically where companies have some offices, R&D offices and so on, plus quite a bit of startups. So as a student, I always saw these startups, heard about them and so on, wanted to either do an internship there or anything. And so I was always attracted to this, a bit of a young mentality and basically you're in charge of making things happen. And this is one aspect I like. Now, this is not my first job. My first job, I went to the UK to follow my then girlfriend, now wife. So I found a job there in a massive company, 300,000 people, something like. So completely the opposite of a startup.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, whatever. I'm the beginning of my career. I need to learn how to work in a company generally. I learned a bunch of things that's during my studies, but how do they apply in the real world? How do you interact with colleagues, hierarchy, and so on? I didn't learn so much from the technical side, but I learned a bunch about human relations, how you deal with, how you make people do something that don't want to work together. And this was really interesting, but at the same time, everything was slow. I would suggest a change, and more often than not, I would get the answer, hey, what we do today works, don't change it. And so at the beginning, you're like, okay, I'm new to this industry, I don't know, maybe that's right. And after a while, you're like, okay, if you don't do any change, how will you progress?
Yes.
And so this idea I had about being in a small company, startup, or small entity, so to say, it grew back up, and I was like, okay, maybe a big company is not the right thing for me, at least not at this stage of my life. I decided to quit and look for a job in a smaller company, founding a startup. It's not the fact that to be in charge, but more the fact that having an impact, making a difference, that's really one thing I would definitely appreciate today.
Okay, very good. Okay, so let's talk about Insolight. Give us a short pitch of what you guys do here.
So basically, we're active in the solar business, so solar energy, electricity generation, not thermal, but really electricity generation, photovoltaics. Basically, what we're trying to do is improving the return on investment. If you look at a solar panel installation today, it varies on the markets, but generally the numbers you have is it pays itself back between 5 and 8 years. We want to bring this down to 3 to 5 years. Basically that the investment you're making as a private or as a small company or even as a big company has a better impact. In improving the return on investment, you're basically lowering the cost of solar electricity, therefore making it more competitive. And this is really the goal that we have. There's a lot of companies out there that have this goal, but there are different approaches to it. Some play on cost of the panels, where there's not much margin left because the Chinese are excellent at lowering costs. As a Swiss startup, you're not going to compete on cost with the Chinese. Let's be frank here.
Yeah.
So on one side is how much you pay for your installation. On the other hand side is how much you get out of it, how much electricity you're generating. And so basically we're working on the second side, on the efficiency, on the performance of the panels. And this is really where we make a difference.
And where do you stand with this development? What's the status there?
Yeah, so Insolight is 3 years old now. We started with basically an IKEA table where we worked on, and this was basically our office. We're either at Laurent Mathieu or my place and just working as we could. Today we're a team of 12 people, and so yes, on this side it's progressed well. We started out with not much, a couple of lenses here and there, solar cell here and there, and today we've got a pilot site running here at EPFL. We've got a couple of panels also in Germany. So basically today we're at a stage where, well, for one, the technology works. It's not like black magic or whatever. Technology works. We've got panels on the roof for over a year now, so it's also reliable. So there's two key things, really, performance and reliability. These 2 points are critical for us. And we're, so to say, moving towards the end of prototypes. Today we're putting together the stepping stones for industrialization. Basically going from a hand-assembled panel, the parts are manufactured, but we assemble them ourselves, towards an assembly line where you could basically press a button and the solar panel comes out. This is my dream of it. It's really like you've got this assembly line, you click a button, there's a solar panel coming out. Like a bit like, I don't know, you buy a train ticket.
Yeah, very nice. And where do you stand with this? Like you are almost like close to industrialization, or it's a process?
It's a process, yeah. It's always like phases, you know. At the very beginning, we needed to prove that we're not doing black magic, that it's actually technology that worked, we're not breaking laws of physics. So we moved past that. Now, then we built prototypes, went from a small set about this size to a solar panel that's about this size. I mean, multiple solar panels that are about this size. And now it's more in the how you manufacture things and how you put them together. So the parts themselves will not change much in the coming months or years, but it's precision, the repeatability, the way to put it together. And there's some companies are better specialized in doing one thing, some are specialized in doing another thing. It's really a matter of putting the good people together, the good companies together, making sure that they align with each other, they don't step on each other's toes, because if not, they won't work together well, and so on. So it's both a human and a social aspect where you really need to work with the people, and a technical one where you need to find solutions. Okay, today we put this together with a screwdriver, for example, but it's really hard for a robot to hold a screw. So maybe you need to glue it together, you need to weld it together. And
what do you see, let's say, are the biggest challenges now when you're working on this, specifically in such a, let's say, capital-intensive environment?
Yeah, so there are loads of startups that are doing software, be it an app, a website, or whatever, which is really good, but we're doing hardware, and therefore basically our budget is double that of a software-based company, because we don't, I'm simplifying here, no offense to anyone having a software-based startup, but basically we've got an office space plus the same size with a lab, so it's, so to say, a workshop. Floor space is doubled, and the equipment is well, you need some equipment to make it work, to having the hardware in your hands. And if anything goes wrong, well, it's not like a couple of minutes and you fix a line of code. It's you need either to order a new part or to remanufacture it and so on. So it's fairly time consuming. But yeah, if you do your planning right, you can. It's manageable.
Yeah, maybe you can talk to me a little bit about the applications of solar energy in general. I mean, I know the basics. You can use it for housewarming. You can probably use it for your car, maybe even your autonomous cars, like Tesla does it. What are other applications in the real world where you could say, listen, if we used solar instead of energy, alternative energy, then we could, save the planet or something like that?
Well, basically we're producing electricity. So whatever runs on electricity today could run on electricity produced by our panels. I mean, today we're injecting electricity into the grid already. I don't know exactly who consumes it, but it's basically an electricity generation. Now, if you look at the global scale, any bit of kilowatt hour or part of electricity that you generate from sustainable sources, be it solar, wind, hydro, or even anything else, is better than burning fossil fuels or anything to pollute. So from this side, I'm not like being a warrior saying you must go to solar. I would nearly say forget about climate change and so on, but because this is a debate that some people agree, some people don't. I don't want to get into it. I just don't want to get into it.
Well, I'll get into it later.
All right. I'll give you this. What if you change the argument from degrees Celsius moving up or down or warming or whatever to actual pollution, like the air you're breathing?
Yeah.
And so look at a hydro dam or a wind turbine or a solar panel. They don't spew out toxic gases and so on. Yeah. So look at your own health or the health of your family, your children, your friends and whatever. I think more people can rally around this than a couple of degrees up and down. It's an easier message to make sure it goes through, so in my opinion.
Sure, but like my next question will be about climate change. You know, everybody says like it's not just one solution fits all, and like you know we solve the electricity with solar and we're done. What do you see? How can like solar have an impact on climate change? How can it have an impact on the environment in general?
Whenever we go to these renewable energy fairs and so on, there's three parts. There's one, the electricity generation, so that's solar, wind, or hydro. Generally, there's other sources, but these are the main three ones that you talk about. There's the grid, where basically transporting the electricity from A to B, and there's the storage. These plus consumption in the end, but anyone consumes electricity. I mean, we do here at the moment.
Yes.
And so in my point of view, where solar can really help is to distribute the load of the grid. Because with the electric vehicles coming along, I don't know exactly how quickly they will come along, but they will, the grid is going to take a massive hit. So basically either you're going to, double, triple, times 10 all the power lines, which needs lots of investment, or you can produce as much energy as possible locally on your roof, on your garden, well, maybe not garden, but on your roof, on your parking lot next door where it's easy to install solar panels. And this would lessen the burden on the grid moving forward. So as you mentioned, it's not a one solution fits all. It's not like go solar and you'll save the world. You need to think about the bigger picture. It's something we are always asked, okay, great, you're creating energy sustainably. What about the storage? What about the grid and so on? And I would like to say, yes, we're working on it. But to be honest, we're a team of 12 people. We cannot save the world by ourselves.
Yeah.
We're doing our part. We're trying to push it forward as much as we can. But if we start to say, okay, let's integrate smart grid into our thing. Let's integrate the battery. Let's integrate 1,000 things. We never go to market. You need to get out. You need to get out. You need to have a first product that you can bring to the consumer that makes economical sense. Later on, you can add however many features you want. I don't want to stop there.
You mentioned before, just before we started the recordings, about how the industry is looking at solar versus how it actually is.
Yeah.
What exactly do you mean by that, and what is the difference between the two?
The general public, at least here in the area, if you say, hey, I'm working in the solar field, everyone will, the eyes will light up. They will, hey, tell me more about it. This is great. I've got a friend who's got a solar installation or whatever. And which is great because, I mean, these people and you are the consumer that will buy the solar panels, be it ours, be it someone else's. I care, but not so much as long as you're moving forward. And then you go to your solar panel installer or your local utility and so on. And obviously the discussions go how many dollars per kilowatt hour, or how much does this cost, and the numbers. And so the enthusiasm just fades away completely.
Because of the price?
Yeah, well, because of the business of it. Simply because in the end it is a business, it's a competitive business. Yeah. Any solution needs to make financial sense. Yeah. The general public, sometimes they're happy about paying a little bit more in order to be green, to be sustainable, whatever. But if you talk to businesses, they rarely care. I wouldn't say they don't, but they rarely care. And so it's a tough business. It's because you're competing with any other source of energy there is, and there's loads. I mean, I'm talking about coal, fossil burning gas, biogas, hydro, nuclear. I mean, we didn't start out with a product. We didn't start out with a technology saying, hey, we want to market this. Yeah. We started out by saying solar is not competitive enough on the market today. How can we fix it? How can we make your bit of electricity that's produced by a solar panel cheaper than the bit of electricity produced by whatever else?
When you look at, let's say, specifically here in the academic world, how is the support, let's say, of EFPL? How is it like to be in such an area? How, like, let's say, you get like support directly from the university?
Yeah, sure. So the first organization that outside of friends and family that believed in us was here at EFPL. The first prize we got was an InnoGrant. So this is basically 100,000 Swiss francs, about $100,000, that they give to a team of people, of young entrepreneurs. At this stage, they're more investing in the people than the idea or the technology, because there's not much here. I mean, we basically had a 3D printed prototype and a presentation. The way they invest this is fairly smart, I think, because they don't simply give you the money and you can fly off to Las Vegas and burn it all up. They give the money to a lab, and this lab basically hires you. And this lab then has, so to say, the responsibility to make sure that the money is well spent, that you're not burning it wherever. So usually what you do is, this is your first salary.
You have to stretch it as much as possible.
You have to stretch it as much as possible. So yeah, we lived off of it, I think the three of us, for 10 months or even a year or something alike.
Okay, that's not bad.
During this year, we managed to advance the technology, get a third-party validation, and also raise more money right and left. I mean, the ecosystem, be it here at EPFL in Lausanne or in Switzerland in general, is fairly good. I mean, it's a small country, so you get to know everyone fairly quickly. You know where to go, you know which way to find, which way to take, and so on. So it's good to be in Switzerland, because as soon as someone supports you, this person will probably know someone else that can support you, and so on.
Okay.
It's fairly good, but then again, I just mentioned Switzerland being a small country is good. It's also bad because you can hit a ceiling at some point. If you're successful, at some point you need to step out of Switzerland and go see somewhere else, go talk to other people.
What are the next steps of Insolight in the next coming years?
It's going from this prototype to an industrialized product. So really making sure that you're not building 5 or 10 at a time, but you're building hundreds or 1,000 at a time that look alike, that perform the same, that are reliable, that where you really can count on.
Yeah.
And this is the next big step, and therefore bringing these modules to market.
And in terms of fundraising?
Early this year, we finished our first seed round. We'll start looking for the next round spring 2019. It takes months. It can take a year.
Sure.
So we want to have the presentation well together to know how much we need, and especially why we need it.
For sure.
Because if I come to you and say, hey, I need 5 million.
Is it like, I know other people who also need 5 million.
Exactly. Yeah. So you need to augment it.
What's your most memorable startup moment?
Winning the InnoGrant and plugging our panels into the grid. So actually not just having a prototype that's, so to say, technically working, but generating electricity.
Yep. What's your best tip when looking at your seed stage investment to get an investor?
The people who will invest, you have probably already met them. Our lead investor, we met them more than a year before the discussions really started, but it was a completely informal relationship beforehand. It was just like, hey, how are you doing? Yeah, we're doing fine, thanks, let's grab a beer.
Yeah.
And don't be in a rush, start early.
Yeah. How do you make sure you have a positive company culture?
I don't really know how to do it, to be honest. It's massively dependent on the people, I think. This counts for me, but I don't think you can force it. The leading team will impose their style of living or of doing business or whatever. So it doesn't mean that if you're super sweet and not super friendly and whatever, you're not gonna make it go forward, or the other way around. But I would say try to be inclusive, try to listen to the people, and but still be harsh when it needs. It's I don't know.
It's hard.
It's hard. Be yourself, I would say.
How would you define success in life?
Having a family that you can count on, having friends.
Yeah.
And at some point having a good work-life balance, because it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So if you get exhausted after a year and you drop dead, then it's not worth it.
Where do you see your biggest regret?
Tough. It's something you constantly learn, but it's being meticulous from the get-go.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been fairly good at it, but you can always be more precise. You can always go 1 decimal further. You can always understand things better. Like dig deep into. If you have an issue, don't go around it. Dig deep in it. You need to solve it.
So the last part of the interview is where you can leave your legacy by giving some advice to future entrepreneurs, to your 20-year-old self or to your 15-year-old self, I don't know.
Yeah, don't start a startup just for the sake of it. It needs to have a purpose. You need to bring a solution to a problem. It's not because I invented this glass that looks funny and my friend laughed about it and wanted to buy one for $5. What problem are you solving here? So you need to solve a problem in order to have a viable business model. At some point, you're going to need some funding, probably. Not every startup, but most do. And so, you need to have a sound business case. And at the beginning, you need to dig around in the market. You need to understand the market. You always think like, okay, I've got this nice product. I love it. It will be great and so on. But does your neighbor like it? Does the other person over there like it? And you really need to answer the hard questions.
Yes.
And it's good to have friends and family that encourage you and so on. But listen to the people who say negative things as well. Yeah. They're not always right, but you still should listen.
Okay, Florian, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, everybody who stayed all the way till the end of this interview. Make sure to stay a few more seconds so you'll see who is up next week. And I'll see you next Monday. Have a great day.
Hello everyone, my name is Tomáš Luka. I am the CEO and co-founder of Curated 3D, a startup making mixed reality glasses from EFPL in Lausanne. And I will be happy to tell you a little bit more next week on this show.